Chapter 4. Welcome to the Castle. While mentally engrossed in planning a way of escape from any future problems that might arise, and becoming convinced that she would hate her decision to come to this remote place, suddenly, directly in front of her, was a massive iron gate that hung from an 8-foot high gray stone wall. The gate barred any access to the road on the other side of the wall. Breaking free from the long journey's fatigue that had set in, Sierra's foot instinctively pressed hard upon the brakes. The little car almost skidded sideways on the pavement as it came to an abrupt halt. 2 miles back, when she turned onto this road, Sierra had not seen a sign notifying her that this was a dead end. And the road sign definitely read Faulkner Road. In addition, the name on the gate also had the name emblazoned in ornamental iron scrollwork of Faulkner Lodge. Okay, Sierra grumbled out loud. This is it. How do I get in? At the sound of her voice, the large gate began to slowly swing open. Guess someone is expecting me, she muttered. Or they have a genie in that gate. From the road, a heavy stand of evergreen trees effectively hid the estate grounds. However, as soon as the curving drive became straight, the house appeared. The structure was built of the same stone as the extensive fence that spanned the entrance of the front. To the road-weary woman, the large dark stones looked forbidding in the icy gloom of the overcast day. In fact, the sight conjured up images of a dark medieval castle shrouded in mist. Sarah shook off the impression with a fierce shake of her shoulders. This is West Virginia, she chided herself. According to the map, there's civilization right up the road, and this is definitely not time to travel back to Wuthering Heights. As the little red car circled around the artfully landscaped grounds to come to a halt at the pillars of the same soot-dark stone that flanked the entrance steps, rain began to fall. Oh, great, Sierra lamented. I get to unpack the car in the rain. Thank you very much, she shouted up at the wet, gloomy, overcast sky. Couldn't you have at least waited 15 more minutes? At close range, the place appeared even more impressive than when approaching from the overlong driveway. However, there was certainly nothing lodge-like about this structure. That is, not by any West Virginia country standards. The stone building was 3 stories high, with rounded pane windows reminiscent of Spanish haciendas. But that was where anything akin to sunny hacienda-like architecture ended. The forbidding gray stone exterior and the overall square design with twin 3-storied corner towers could have come from an old-world medieval castle. The marble stone porch that took up the front of the building between the towers had 5 wide steps, each step cut in one solid piece. Sarah contemplated her situation glumly, which she wouldn't give, she thought, for her 2 energetic twin nephews to appear right now to help her get her bags up those steps and in out of the rain. I'll be soaked and spend the first week getting over a miserable cold. And this is what I get for lying to my mother, she muttered wearily. I fib and tell her I'm sick, and so I cursed myself and made it happen. You should know better by now, dummy. Never lie to your mother. The momentum of the outburst energized the travel-weary young woman to run the gauntlet of the cold, wet rain to the relative protection of the stone overhang of the massive front door. With her hand on the car door handle closest to the building, she gazed out of the window toward the house, once again gazing at the sheer grandeur of the size and architecture of the forbidding building. It was to be her home for the next 3 months. Exhausted after the long drive and chilled by the loss of heat from the car heater, Sarah removed the keys from the ignition. Then a few more shivering moments trying to find the door key on its wired ring that Mrs. Allen had given her. She clutched the small metal object firmly in her hand. Then, after reaching into her side door pocket for the fold-up umbrella that was always in readiness for rain, the young woman dashed from the car up the slippery steps. It took only moments for her to reach the massive wooden door. Without hesitation, she inserted the key into a modern-looking brass lock that contrasted brightly against the ancient wood it was encased in. Sarah pushed the heavy door open and was greeted with another surprise. There was a lamp placed on a beautiful ebony-colored hall table, giving enough light so that she could see the interior clearly. Closing the door securely against the cold and rain, the young woman slowly entered the hall, taking in her surroundings. Though the glow from the lamp was warmly inviting, the height of the ceiling was shrouded in darkness. The temperature in the room seemed as cold as it was outside, and Sierra shivered as if feverish. Surely there was heat on here, she thought. Mrs. Allen knew that she was coming, and she said the old man took care of these things. Oh, Lord, she sighed as her mind began to conjure up terrors of the night and other bizarre thoughts. You're going to be way out here all alone in this gloomy place, all by yourself for 3 whole months. What were you thinking, C? $10,000, she reminded herself staunchly, her words echoing loudly in the dim hallway. And you have a car. The nearest town is what, 20, 30 miles? There are people there. Walgreens, Taco Bell, Mickey D's. Can't be that far away. This is the 21st century, so get a grip. Despite the brave words from the first sight of the medieval-looking fortress that night was a real test of Sierra's courage. Immediately after retrieving her bags and depositing them inside the front door, her first inclination was to get more lights turned on. The first door Sierra opened was in total darkness. Reasoning that light switches were always right inside next to the door in most well-constructed buildings, she found and pushed the smooth square button, and the room was flooded with light from a beautiful glass globe chandelier that hung from the center of the room. Without pausing to inspect or admire the room, Sierra crossed to the other side where a large multi-pane door opened into a vaulted great room. On went the light, and her feet sped back out into the hallway as she proceeded to open doors and light up more rooms until she came to the wide crimson carpeted staircase. There was nothing on earth that could have induced Sierra to venture up those stairs in the dark. However, she had found that two of the doors that she opened in her hasty flight to get light into this gloomy place were merely closets, and one room had been a partial bathroom. With these amenities to accommodate her, she turned her attention to the hunger that was gnawing away at her stomach. It was enough to give her momentum to examine more dark rooms and locate the kitchen. The kitchen was soon located 3 more doors beyond the stairwell. After finding it, Sierra gazed at the interior of an empty refrigerator, berating herself that she had not thought that she might need to bring along food to eat. Fortunately, the kitchen cupboards were not bare. The housekeeper that had left so abruptly had stocked basic staples in bulk quantities. After a meal of chicken noodle soup, topped with canned salad croutons and several cups of strong hot tea, Sierra was ready to find a bed for herself for the night. Although in her haste to get light in the dark, gloomy house, she had not taken more than a fleeting glance at any of the rooms. However, with lights ablaze and hunger satisfied, she was ready to explore her temporary home. Working her way toward the first room adjacent to the front door that had wide pocket doors, Sierra could see that it was furnished with a couch. As exhausted as she was, any sleeping surface would do, no matter how glamorous or fancy, she decided. For the next hour, Sierra prepared for bed in her chilly makeshift bedroom. She donned her warmest flannel nightgown, adding an oversized hooded sweat jacket for extra warmth. After checking the front door locks for security, she then curled up on an unexpectedly comfortable, soft sofa and promptly fell asleep, leaving every light, including the kitchen, burning. The next morning, Sierra woke, her limbs stiff with cold. She poked her head out from beneath the one blanket that she had brought from home and viewed her surroundings. Lord Almighty! Sierra let out a grumpy protest. Despair quickly turned to delight when she saw the sun shining into the room after the previous day of rain. In the bright light of the day, the room appeared quite normal, if rather large and formal for her taste. With the sun shining brightly through the separation in the elaborate, ornate window coverings, the previous night's imaginings now seemed only a bad dream, because last night Sierra consigned this residence was inspired by a classic horror movie that frightened her when she was a child. "Doesn't this place have any heat?" she complained. Struggling to an upright position, Sierra pushed her long tousled locks from her eyes and looked around at the room. Immediately her eyes fastened on a smoke-blackened fireplace that had not captured her notice the night before. The overlarge stone fireplace was completely surrounded by floor-to-ceiling shelving with books filling every shelf in haphazard array. Finding her slippers and still wrapped in her blanket, the young woman crossed the uncarpeted wooden floor and bent to examine the fireplace more closely. Unfortunately, the person who used this fireplace left it filthy with soot and ash. However, there were several large logs of firewood in the grate, and no matter how sooty it made the room, there would be heat. Sierra rummaged among her bags and found matches that she brought with the intention of using them to indulge herself with candle-lit bubble baths. The small box of matches proved to be a fortuitous insight, because As a seasoned camper, Sierra soon had a fire burning merrily in the grate.